Hey, good afternoon, Facebook followers. Thanks for tuning in to yet again another Facebook Live event with Invested. I am Joy. I'm the marketing coordinator. I'm here with George
Hey guys.
our lead advisor, and today we're going to be talking about philanthropy. I'm new to this game, but I know that George, you typically, invite users to send in their questions. So if you have any questions about philanthropy, feel free to text them to us while we're talking. We're really just going to have it really conversational today. I'll ask George some questions, and feel free to chime in as you wish.
And also, we're doing it today with a Thanksgiving theme.
Oh yeah.
hopefully everyone can see that these are two lovely turkeys. So hope everyone's getting prepared for Thanksgiving. So what an appropriate topic to talk about when you think about philanthropy, because Thanksgiving, and this is specifically about giving. So where did you want to start off today, Joy?
I guess we'll just start off with philanthropy. Like, what are your thoughts about philanthropy?
So, I mean, throughout history, we've seen, a lot of big names, like Rockefeller, for example, was a big philanthropic presence in like New York. So things like that have always been associated with typically the wealthy, I think. And I think, we live in a society where that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. We are able to give in any situation for the most part. And I think it's just about being responsible, because we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin when it comes to that. But I think it's a big part of what our society really is, and I think it's important to continue to do that, because there are definitely less fortunate others out there, and I think it's a big part too, giving back to the community, things like that. I'm obviously born and raised in Baltimore, so I think stuff like that. Just if we want to touch on Baltimore real quick, actually, with Bloomberg, was it 1.5 billion to Hopkins? So I think stuff like that.
Major.
Yeah, that's a huge donation. He gave 1.5 billion, and I think stuff like that just resonates throughout the community. I mean, like, this is John Hopkins school that down the street from us. So I just think that's really cool to be part of that in that sense of community, so to speak. Do you have any opinions on philanthropy?
I mean, I have to agree with everything you said. That's something that my mom instilled in my brother and I when we were growing up. We did a lot of volunteering. So I know we'll probably get into that a little more, but the thought of giving back, you may not have a whole lot, but you could have a lot more than someone else, and just to be grateful for what you have, and donate your time here and there just to help those who are in need or a little less fortunate. And the benefits of giving, to yourself and to others, it's just twofold. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, just to piggyback off of that too, psychologically, like, individuals typically benefit from giving back.
Right.
So there's definitely a positive correlation with that. I think that's also a big thing too, is people do want to give. So today we want to kind of talk about like the appropriate way to give, in the sense that we want to make sure that people are being cognizant of their own situation, and not, like I said, stretching themselves to them. We don't want people to give too much so that they need to someone to be philanthropic to them. So we want to make sure it's just a responsible way to do so.
Yeah. So we've kind of touched on this already. Why do people feel that you should give back? I guess I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Yeah.
But
So obviously the psychological aspect, obviously, I think it brings like a positive mental aspect and benefit there. But people just want to help individuals in need. And I think also, I like to look at it from a community perspective, where there's that old adage where it says, like, it takes a village to raise a child. So things like that, where the community is huge, and it's like giving back to the community that helped raise you, helped mold you. And I think a lot of people want to do that. And I think that's important too. And maybe that's more of a just understanding your roots and like being appreciative of that sense. But I think that's really a cool connection to your community, is being able to give back in some way, shape, or form. So I think that was, you look at Bill Gates as a big philanthropist, and I brought up what's his name, Rockefeller too. Like, so like those types of individuals wanted to give back to, well, in this sense, maybe the world or their community. I just think the broader sense there is just being able to have that level of impact, and get to a point where you can have that level of impact, because we all want to give, but also we don't want to, as I mentioned already, stretch ourselves too thin. But if we take care of ourselves first and then are able to give back, it can be even more impactful. So I think that's an important thing to realize.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I would interject is, as far as why somebody should give back, you do want to see an impact, whether small, locally, on a grander scale, globally. But I feel like people really should, research the organizations that they choose to donate to, or have in-kind donations, or donate their time to. Really get a good sense of where those funds are going to. Make sure that the impact is actually going where it's supposed to be. Just save your dollars. And every dollar is important. That's leaving your pocket, so you want to make sure that it's going to a worthy cause.
That's a good point. Very good point.
So I know during the holidays, there are a lot of initiatives where people are asking for donations, year-end giving. And, people are more inclined to give during this time of year. They might just give on a whim, like, okay, I haven't given much thought. So when a lot of people give money on a whim, but as an advisor, would you say that's a good thing, or should they really put people budget for a charity?
So I think, you could theoretically do both to an extent. If you want to be able to give on a whim, then I think you should set money aside first. Okay. So think of it this way. I mean, it's sort of like budgeting for it, but like let's say at the beginning of the year, you say, throughout this year, I'm going to give $1,000 to charity. And maybe you don't know what charity it is, but like when something pops up, maybe around the holidays, or maybe it's to a religious group, like if you're Christian, Jewish, whatever it might be, maybe you give to your church or synagogue. But like you've set aside that money already. Right. So it's like you've already budgeted that in. Theoretically, it's like this $1,000 throughout the year will go to charity. But then it just gives you the flexibility to say, okay, you know what? I am going to give $100 today. But if you look at your checking or your savings and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to take money out. I think that can be a little dangerous, just in the sense that you haven't prepared for it necessarily. So I think preparation is the key here. And if you have excess cash, like that's fine. And I think you could give on a whim, but I think the responsible way would be budgeted in some way, shape, or form. So even if you wanted to save $50 a month, and then December comes around, you save this $50 a month specifically for charity. And I think that way it protects you a little better. I think it's great when people give, but I just, I've seen my mother give, over 10% of her paycheck to the church, which is great, and I think it's awesome. But in the same respect, if she's having trouble paying rent or paying her bills, then it's like, you need to be cognizant of how you do it then, because it's obviously going to impact your personal life, and it may put you in a financial bind. And there's not a George fund set up where people can donate to. So then all of a sudden I have to realize, hey, I have to take care of myself too. So I think just being a little responsible, but I think you can build in the ability to be, kind of do it at a whim, which is what I think people like to do. But I think there's still like a responsible way to go about it. That's all. Because it is fun to be kind of spontaneous about it. But responsibly spontaneous, I don't know if it's necessarily a thing, but
you can coin it here.
Yeah, be responsibly spontaneous about it.
So for the individual who, I don't know, is overly generous, or people who are thinking about, planning their charity for next year, is there like a percentage that you could give them that they shouldn't go over in their budget? Because I know we break our budget into like,
So if I was, doing anything with like our breakdown of our budget, so we say, 65% should go towards essentials, which is, rent, debt payments, whatever it might be. 20% should go to investing in yourself, and then the other 15% should be discretionary. I personally think that this isn't an investment. This is more so indiscretionary. So if you are going to build it in, then think of it as this shouldn't be coming out of your personal investment or your personal debt payments. It should be a part of your discretionary. And I think, some people might not agree, but again, we go back to this brings a positive mindset to yourself. So when we think about discretionary spending, this is our fun money. This is stuff that makes us feel good. And it could be anything. However, I would lump charity into that. So have that be part of your 15%, per se. Don't pull back from your necessities or your investing in yourself. You can encapsulate it within the 15%. So I think, there's no right percentage. And much like when I look at, investing in yourself, we think 20% is a great thing. It's a stretch. It's hard to do. Best case scenario, but I always say anything better than zero is great. So maybe the same thing with charity. Anything better than 0% is still a positive effect. So I wouldn't say there's a threshold in terms of what they should, unless we want to say 15% because that's the discretionary.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, people could have less payments in their essentials and thus have a higher discretionary. But I would lump it into that category, simply just because that's money that you don't necessarily, I say necessarily need, but we all could be saving more.
Mm-hmm.
But it would fall in the same category as discretionary, since it is more for positive vibes.
Positive vibes.
Yeah.
Okay. So for individuals whose budget is a little tight
Mhm.
and they don't have that, the big lump sum of discretionary available, what are some alternatives to donating besides, the monetary donation?
Yeah. When we talk about philanthropy, for the most part, even the definition itself is going to tie towards monetary donations.
Mhm.
And I'm not discouraging that, but I think time is something that is, kind of, you can always donate.
Right.
So if you want to help out, like a shelter or your community, like there are things to do that are free per se, where it just costs your time. And if you are in a situation where maybe you have a tight budget, then donate your time. A lot of times that's more impactful than money. Like money's the easy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Money is something that we can just give and hope that it gets used. You mentioned this earlier, where hopefully they're using the funds appropriately, and that's where research comes into play, of researching the charity. But I think giving your time can be impactful too, and it can still bring that level of probably good endorphins when you're helping someone, helping your community, and that's just as important as money. And sometimes you'll see people begging for volunteers, and it's like they're getting money donations, which is great, but now they need volunteers.
Right.
So I think that's just as important, if not more important, in some situations than just giving money. So donate your time. If you have old, there's also like old clothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big into computers, and I know a lot of schools ask for old computer parts. So that's something I can do too. Is you have old computers or old computer parts that can benefit a school. Things like that. So just be cognizant of what else is available to you. You don't have to give money. You can give time. You can give gently used goods, whatever the situation might be. So don't just think, oh, if I don't have money, I can't help. Like you can absolutely still help.
Yeah. If you have a skill set and you just want to do something on your own time, like free haircuts, free something in the community. So it's always something you can do for your fellow man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that some organizations, this is tying it back into monetary donation, but I know that some organizations offer like an employer match. Like if you donate somewhere, your employer will donate too.
That's true.
Even a small amount. The small amount that you think may be too small could actually be matched, by your employer.
Well, on top of that too, outside of the monetary, some employers will actually offer a day for giving. So on my previous jobs too, I could take, I think, 2 days a year off specifically for community service, anything like that. So, check and see what's available to you. Don't just assume it's monetary. A lot of organizations now have things built into, their employee plan where like, hey, we support this too. And yes, they may offer a match for monetary donations, but they also usually offer like a day off or something like that if you're specifically using it towards some nonprofit or something like that. So that's always something to check. I always urge people, check with your HR department, see what you have access to, whether it's your retirement plan or stuff like charity and donations. Like a lot of them have stuff already built into it, because the push for corporate social responsibility is huge now, and I think that's something we've seen over the past decade grow and grow every year. So even when I was at TD Ameritrade, big company, we think, oh well, they're just in it for profit. But even them, like that's, I had days off to use for community service. So a lot of big companies too push for this. So check with your HR department and see what's available to you. Don't just dismiss it as, well, we're a private company, so we just think about ourselves. Like that's not the case.
So we'll move on to our next question. For people who donate cash or in kind, will they be eligible for a tax deduction?
Yeah, so 2 benefits there. If you're donating a stock, let's say, or securities, there's 2 benefits you get. So number 1, you wouldn't be liable for the capital gains that you may have. So a lot of individuals that have, like you buy a stock and it's appreciated a ton, you can donate that. You won't have to pay the taxes on the capital gains. Whereas if you sold it and took the profits, you have probably 15% on the profit to pay in taxes. So if you donate a stock, not only can you deduct it, you avoid that taxation on your capital gains. So that's a benefit there. But yeah, I mean, anything like that, even like old clothing, like you can deduct certain items. So check with your accountant to make sure it's eligible. We're not tax advisors here, but yes, there is, and there are situations when you can deduct it, and obviously you save yourself money if you do have like a high capital gains or something on a stock. So I think those things are just important to realize. Like, if you do want to do good, but also, there are tax deductions and incentives for doing good. And I'm sort of I'm more about the end result. So if you do something good, and yes, if you benefit along the way, that's perfectly fine. Like, we're more about impact than necessarily, like, I don't think it's selfish to get a tax deduction if you're donating, something. So
are there any donations that aren't tax deductible? Like, what is the
requirement? The biggest requirement would be, again, this goes back to research. So make sure it is a 503c company or organization. Make sure it's nonprofit, and that you are eligible to actually make a donation that is deductible. So I can't necessarily say, hey, Joy, and here's $100, and then go write off my taxes. Like, Joy would have to be set up as a 503c company in order to receive that as a charitable donation, and that would have to be on me to make sure. You can't just assume the side that you're giving to is going to be set up that way. So, with this type of stuff, you definitely do want to do your research just in case. But I think most importantly, to see where your money's going. Like, what is it funding? If you are going to be part of philanthropy, then you need to make sure that impact, like, what the impact is. Because if you're just donating dollars, they could do whatever they want.
Right.
So do your research, make sure that it's going towards maybe something, a cause you may care about, or whatever it might be, but also make sure that they're using it in the way that you'd want it to be used if you were doing it yourself. So,
would you say most organizations are willing to provide support, like, or evidence that they've?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of times receipts.
Okay.
A receipt is usually, except if you donated to Goodwill, for example, they give you a receipt.
No, like if you donate to an organization and they say, oh, if you select where you want your money to, so like they have different initiatives. Do you find that companies are typically willing to supply evidence that your funds have gone to?
I mean, almost all the time. I mean, it's odd if they don't.
Okay.
Because you have to look at it from the other side too. Like, they have to make sure that they're showing it appropriately too. But I haven't had a situation, since working in this industry, like with clients that want to do charitable donations. I haven't had a situation where they're like, where the institutions like, oh no, we're not going to give you it. So, and if it is, then I definitely question what their motive is if they don't want to give you, any evidence of what's going on, because they have a liability too to make sure they report things appropriately.
So if anyone has any questions about philanthropy, feel free to let us know. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, George?
Yeah, obviously it's the season of giving. Be responsible. Giving is great. It doesn't have to be the most expensive item though. So again, you can also give time. I mean, I love Thanksgiving because it surrounds around food. So that's not necessarily an expensive thing, but you can give meals, things like that. It doesn't have to be monetary. But as we get into Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate, you have to be cognizant of, like, look, if you want to give gifts to your family, that's fine. It doesn't have to be the most expensive thing. You shouldn't be breaking your own budget to provide for others. I think that's important too. Is just spend within your means. Your family hopefully will still love you if you don't get them an expensive laptop or an iPhone, whatever it might be. So hopefully that's not the case, and that your family understands, and just give your time and be available. There's been situations where my brother personally hasn't been in good financial standing. He's made breakfast for the family for Christmas Day. That's just as nice, because maybe that's just for me. I'm very food motivated, but I think that's a gesture. Gestures should go a long way. And if you feel like they're not, then maybe you're surrounded by the wrong friends or family. But hopefully that's not the case, and don't feel guilty if you can't spend a lot. That's okay.
Yeah. And another thought is maybe you could even team up with somebody.
Yeah.
Like do it like a pool of money. Just pick a charity that you guys want to donate to. That could go a long way.
Great point.
Just gather a group of friends. My family and I actually volunteered at the Alzheimer's walk maybe 2 weekends ago. So that was was a nice way to get the family together and do some giving back. So think about joining up with friends and family on initiatives surrounding philanthropy is a good idea as well. So.
That's great. That's a really good point too. So find like-minded individuals that want to support the same cause.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's everything we have. Like always, if you guys want to come in for a one-on-one meeting, it's complimentary. You don't have to worry about paying for that. So you can give yourself, your own little gift, so to speak, in terms of a financial meeting, and we can talk about, giving back to your community or charity, whatever it might be, and lump that into the conversation. So happy to help out with anything that I can. But thanks for watching us today, and
gobble gobble. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, have a safe holiday season.
Stay warm.
Yeah.